Okay, excellent. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's David Atherton. I'm Director of Customer Experience at AO.com. Firstly, thank you very much for coming to listen to my story today. Secondly, thank you to Genesys for inviting me along to enable me to do so. Just to say right at the start, who's here for the free lunch? Okay, excellent. You're either very kind or lying, one of the two. What I'm going to do is it's a case study, this, so I'm not going to try and sell you anything, unlike probably most of the sessions that you may attend today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we have developed over a number of years now. AO.com, for those of you that don't know, does anybody watch Britain's Got Talent? For your sins, you don't have to admit it. So we are partnering with BGT this year. Try and get ourselves out there a little bit. We started live 17 years ago as pretty much a white goods business. We were known at the time as Appliances Online. And what we really wanted to do when we set up off the back of a £1 bet, our founder John Roberts was sat in the pub with a couple of his mates. I think one had a van and the other knew the internet a little bit. And John's background was white goods, and just thought it's not great from a consumer, from a customer perspective. Customers aren't getting a great experience. So he was better quid by his mates that he wouldn't quit his job at the time and start the business Appliances Online. And 17 years later, he's pretty proud of what he's done. Rebranded a few years ago to AO.com. We didn't really want to be stuck in just selling appliances. We wanted to expand into different categories and different countries. So rebranded to AO.com, and that's the business that we have today, selling TVs, computers, in various other categories. So I'm going to tell you our story. First things first, really, from a business, we've got to be very clear in terms of what we're trying to achieve. So we have a goal, a purpose, and a core value. Our goal is to be the best electrical retailer in Europe. We recently opened offices in Germany and in the Netherlands. So we literally picked the UK business model up, dropped it in some other territories, and going through that journey now. Our core purpose is to be exceptional in the moments that matter. So that was really what I wanted to come and share with you today, how we are going about trying to do that with our customers at every touch point in the business. And we're going to do that because we care more. So it's one of those where we believe that what we've got to do is care more. We have loads of phrases. I'll share some of those with you today. One of them being never outsource a core competency. You know, nobody else will care about your own business as much as you do. So, you know, what we try and do is make sure we own as much as we can, we retain as much influence as we can to make sure that we care more than everybody else and more than our competitors. One of the ways that we do that is by having some core values. We are passionate about making sure that these are not just words on a wall. It's really important that we live and breathe those every day and make sure that they're just in our everyday language. We've got to recruit to these. So we try and make sure we have an exceptional recruitment process and policy. You know, get it right most of the time, still get it wrong sometimes. But what we are looking for are behaviors. We don't look for customer service or customer experience or sales professionals. We look for people that display the behaviors that we are looking for in a person. You can train skill, you can't train behavior. And thirdly, we have a customer experience strategy. So this is my world, essentially, and there's three parts to this. Firstly, be brilliant at the basics. So don't worry too much about, say, the last 5%, because customers don't care too much about that. They don't get. I remember being in meetings in the past where we've talked about tea towels and fridge magnets and bottle openers and stuff that customers don't really care about. If we do what we say we're going to do when we're going to do it, customers will really like what we do and keep coming back time and time again. So obsess about being brilliant at the core business, be brilliant at the basics. Now obviously that's there's kind of two wins to that. One, customers are happy. Secondly, customers shouldn't need to interact with us. But if they do want to interact with us, there's two ways that we try and deal with that contact as well. The first way is the best service is no service. So we read a book of a similar name about 6 years ago. It was actually around the time that we partnered with Genesys, actually. It's a book by Bill Price and David Jaffe, and it's a very simple principle that customers don't want to interact with businesses. Businesses give customers reasons to interact for a couple of reasons, which I'll go through later. So best service is no service, and we'll talk through all of these points. And finally, we care more. So the thing that keeps us awake at night is essentially retaining the culture that we've got within our people. Our people are our most important commodity, our most important and valuable asset, and it's the one thing that we lose sleep every night, is just to make sure that we don't lose the culture, we don't lose the behaviors, we don't lose the attitude that's got us to where we are today. So I'm gonna break these down and we'll go through them one by one. If you've got any questions, feel free to fly through those at the end. We've got plenty of time. So in terms of being brilliant at the basics, now we love a good football analogy. Apologise if you don't like football. There's not many things that you can't fit a good football analogy around. And this is one where we talk about be good at passing. My son is 9, he loves football, he plays every Saturday, and all he's interested in is scoring goals, volleys, overhead kicks, you name it. And all I say to him every week is, "Oh, don't worry about all that fluff, just be good at passing." You know, if you're an 8 or 9 out of 10, every game, you'll be a key individual in that team. And don't worry about the rest of it. And this is what we do. We obsess about being brilliant at the basics. So, and we talk about moments that matter. You know, some people say, well, a moment that matters is the point that we just turn up and make the delivery, because that's what we do, we deliver stuff. But it's not. It's every touch point with our business. So from the moment that a customer, yeah, it works, I'm impressed. The moment that a customer goes onto our website, they have an opinion of AO.com. And we've got to try and understand what that opinion is. Whether they interact with our contact centers, and then right the way through our comms journey to a very important moment, of course, but not the only moment, the point that we actually make the delivery with the customer. Generally the human interaction that the customer will get. And there's kind of 3 main parts to this, so I'll focus. There's loads, but there's 3 main parts. First I mentioned is the website. You know, we don't have physical stores. Our website is our shop to a customer. So we've got to make sure that the website is effortless as it can be for a customer to make sure that they make that purchase. And this is where one of the roles that the contact center play is that, it's a bit of an old phrase, but it's absolutely true, the voice of the customer. We've got to make sure that we are understanding every single journey that a customer makes when they go onto that website, where they enter the website, where they exit the website, whether they click and engage with that page. And make sure we feed in to the rest of the business what questions customers are asking us based on this. So we implemented live chat about 18 months ago. 2 reasons essentially. Firstly, there's a customer demand for it, so we wanted to do it. But secondly, the insight that we can get from the questions that the customers ask and the pages that they ask them on is invaluable. And we make sure that we have a very good interaction with the rest of the business, marketing and e-coms in particular, and they are desperate to know what it is. What is it that stopped customers buying? Because, you know, some customers will go elsewhere and make that purchase, some will ring in and ask us. But if we can make sure that all of the information is there, whenever a customer goes on and wants it, we're in a good place. Second part, after a customer is bought, is then the communication between ourselves and that customer. So they don't really think too much. There's a little bit around what the delivery proposition is before they buy it, but essentially it's the product and the price of that product that's the main focus when they're in the purchase, in the buying mode. As soon as they press buy, that doesn't matter anymore because they've already decided that. It's then around the delivery. So making sure that we have very personal communication to the customer is really important. So giving them the ability to track their order, making sure it's very timely. You could send, in theory, everything as soon as they've bought it, but the best thing is to drip feed that to the customer between that point of purchase and that day of delivery, so that it's relevant and timely and personal to where they are at that point. And then finally, the drivers themselves. So we've got to make sure, and we spent a huge amount of time actually, making sure that the drivers understood the difference between, does that work? Washing machine, love, and good morning, Mrs. Smith, I got your washing machine today. It's really simple and really low effort, but makes a huge difference. You know, you do find if the drivers are turning up, and they're not really, let's face it, they're not drivers anymore, and they haven't been for a long time. They're customer experience, customer service operatives, representatives, whatever you call them. face to face with the customer. And if they don't uphold our brand values when they're in front of the customer, all the rest of it is really pointless. So it's a really important part for us, is that we make sure that the drivers turn up, they have shoe covers if they need to, and they do as much as they can for that customer. So it's really important. It's really our core business. It's what customers expect, but we spend a huge amount of time knowing literally every journey. Any customer that has placed an order with us, we know what happens with that order, whether it's delivered, whether it's not delivered, whether it's cancelled. We make sure we know everything about it. Okay, so on to the best service is no service. Like you say, there is a book. I don't think there's such a thing as an original idea really these days. We kind of make sure we understand everything about other businesses and make sure we adapt those things. And we adapted best service is no service. And I'll kind of take it to you now. It's not the, forgive me if anyone's in here, Ryanair principle of just don't give service at all. It's about removing the need. That's the key thing here. It's removing the need, because customers don't want to interact with businesses in the main. And there's 5 points which we'll go through now. And these are principles that we've had for a number of years now. First one we say is about making contact effortless. Now actually in the book, Amazon, who I love, by the way, are upheld as a bastion of best service and no service. I'm listening to the audiobook now, and it's exactly how they are set up. However, try and ring Amazon. That's the only thing I'd say. And I don't know if any of you've tried it. If you have, you're very good if you've made it, because at the moment, they just want you to live chat with them. And that's fine if you like live chat, but what we don't believe is pushing customers down any particular channel. Our belief is that a customer should be able to interact with us in whatever channel they choose. Whether that, obviously, now I know voice is on the decline, but it's still our biggest channel. It's still, the vast majority of the contacts that we get. But voice, email, social media, all these different channels, it should be very easy, and you shouldn't place too much importance on one channel than the other. Now, naturally, an email is going to have a longer response time than a phone call, but, gone are the days in my mind of 10 days to respond to emails. We believe, 2 to 3 hours is the expected response time for an email. Obviously, a lot of the others, live chat, social media, and voice, pretty much instantaneous, and they have to be. And obviously, we've got to widen the amount of channels that customers can interact with us in. Now that on its own, I understand, from a CFO's perspective, is not a very good business strategy. We're just driving contact in. But the key, and this is where we believe we differentiate ourselves from a number of our competitors, is we obsess about understanding why that customer is contacted. Because like I said earlier, there are only 2 reasons why a customer wants to interact with a business. The first is something's gone wrong, and they want to complain about it, or they want us to fix their problem. And the second is they have a question, and they want more information, and they want us to answer it. Very high level, very simple, but everything pretty much fits in that category. You could argue there are some people who still like picking up the phone as their preferred channel of choice, and that's fine, but that customer is on the wane. That isn't going to be a forever channel. And what we've got to do is obsess about those 2 different things, because otherwise you don't know what you're doing, essentially. And that's it. We've got to make sure we know why customers call, when they call, and there's a huge amount of time and effort spent in understanding that, so we know what to do. If you don't know why customers are interacting with you, you don't know what to do, and that's our philosophy and our principle. Now this is one that is a personal favourite. I mentioned earlier about being the voice of the customer. This is where we say own the actions across the business. Now there was a time in the past when if the customer experience department had an increase in calls, people would come to me going, what's going on, what are you doing, as if it was my fault. Now, less than 3% of contacts into a contact center are actually the responsibility of the contact center itself. We're just the people that customers tell when stuff goes wrong elsewhere. Whether it's a complaint about the delivery, whether it's a question about the website, or whether it's something's not wrong, it's generally IT, it's generally marketing, it's generally logistics, it's pretty much, or it could be the supplier, of course, and it's pretty much everyone else that drive the contact in. So our responsibility is to, as I say, push that information up to the rest of the business and make sure we have a good relationship with all of the different areas so they understand their piece of the pie. And also make sure that they are close to the customer. It's amazing. We do call listening on a regular basis, me and my whole team. But I challenge every other area of the business to do the same, because otherwise it's really easy to forget why you're there, and it's really important that we reinforce that on a regular basis. And then other than that, do stuff and measure everything. So when I kind of say do something, we have a very ready, fire, aim approach, in the sense, if it seems like a good idea, have a go. And Neil always says, if you're going to get it wrong, if you fail fast. And that's exactly what we try and do. If it seems like it's a good idea or there's some merit in it, have a go. Make sure you measure it. You've got your metrics in line before you start, but have a go, because sometimes it's not always the most obvious things that are the right thing and what customers like. Great example. This is through understanding our customers' contact patterns. We have what we call a stage of journey plan. And we hate IVRs. I hate massively deep, wide IVRs where you have 36 options, whatever it might be. And what we do, we can recognize the customer from their CLI. Somebody else was presented it somewhere earlier. So we know pretty much who's ringing us and why they're going to ring us, because we know where in the journey they are. So we have 7 at the moment. I think it might be 8 since I updated this, because we're forever learning and understanding. But what we do is we present the customer, if we recognize the phone number, we have it in our database, we present them with the IVR that's relevant to them. So for example, if you've not ordered or you're a new customer, there is what we call the default IVR, which is a sales or service, 2 options. After that, if we know you, for example, IVR 2, well, you've ordered and your delivery is in the future. Well, you're not going to buy anything. So why would we say if you're ringing to place an order? There's a 0.5% chance based on our analysis that you are. But why should we play 100% of customers an option that only 0.5% of customers are going to take up? So we don't. Post-order, pre-day of delivery. Then on the day of delivery, we've got 2. Your day of delivery before and the day of delivery after your deliveries. And so on and so forth. To give you an idea, if you've ordered and your delivery's in the future, there is a 95% chance you're ringing for one of those 3 reasons. 1, you want to know when you're going to receive your delivery time slot information, like I mentioned earlier. You pick the product, you want to know when you're going to get it. Makes sense. Customers want to change their delivery date. You can actually do that in the IVR. So you can do that without having to speak to somebody. You can do it on a portal, on a web portal. But if you want to ring up, we know that's it. And you want to add or remove a service or change a product around, whatever it might be. So we won't ever put you through to sales. We'll just put you straight through to our customer experience, as we call it, our customer service team. Just makes it really quick. We're really obsessed with the amount of time a customer spends in the IVR, because I don't think anyone likes it. Sometimes we expect to ring certain businesses, you expect to spend 5-10 minutes waiting, but nobody ever is happy with that. And we obsess about making sure you're in the IVR as little as possible and you get to the right person as quickly as possible too. Another one, on the day of delivery in the morning, you want a very specific time slot information. Well, you want to speak to the driver, so we'll put you straight through. And this is automated. So because we recognize your number, we can say to you, thanks for ringing, order number AOL123 is out for delivery today. Your delivery is between 2 and 4 this afternoon. If you'd like to speak to your driver, press 1. If you want to speak to the call center, press 2. It's very simple. We just don't play you options that are not relevant to you, because we understand who you as a customer are. And we've got a video which we're going to play now. Hopefully you can hear it. Any sounds?
This is Helen, and her
Hold on, I'll do that again.
CLI recognition helps our team identify who the customer is and the likely reason for their call. This is Helen, and her new washing machine is out for delivery today. By recognizing Helen's number when she calls, we can cross-reference it against our order database and where her order is in the journey. Based on our analysis, we know that if Helen were to call today, she would most likely be phoning for an ETA or to get a message to her driver.
Good morning. Thank you for calling AO.com. We have found an order linked to your phone number. Your washing machine is scheduled for delivery today between the hours of 1 p.m. and 3 p.m.
Here at AO, we have our own logistics company, which means we can give Helen a live time slot based on the current location of her delivery team. By knowing Helen, her order, and her driver, we can also give her the option to speak to them directly.
As your delivery is due today, your driver may be the best person to speak to.
This innovative system has helped us cut down on the amount of common queries coming into our contact centre. This means we can utilise our operators' time and expertise in better ways and give the customer a more personal, relevant and effortless experience.
So, I mentioned about not outsourcing a core competency. That's the kind of good thing, we can be joined up. So all of our drivers have it's a smartphone now, handheld terminal as we kind of know it in the cab, so it can send a signal back to a central database so a customer can track their order. And if they're on, they can do it online, but if they also ring us, we'll play it to them. We'll tell the customer what their time slot is, so that hopefully the customer's like, wow, you know, it's personal. You know, one of the things that we really focus on is a personal and effortless experience for a customer. So if we understand their needs and give them the information before they actually need to speak to one of our contact center team, then everybody in the everyone in the business is happy. So we're going to go through now our people principles. So there's quite a lot of kind of stuff there, but what we're going to do is talk to you about how we expect our people to interact with our customers. Because we want people, you know, I always say there's two types of people that work in contact centers: those that want to be told what to say and those that want to make a decision. And we've got to make sure we've got the right ones. You know, we want people that think every day. We don't want people to stop thinking when they walk through the door, you know, because every single customer scenario is different. And I mentioned earlier about you can't pay people to care. You know, we've got to hire people based on the values, not based on their experience or where they've worked in the past, because actually a lot of time people pick up really bad habits from working in other places where it's that real computer says no kind of attitude, and that's not acceptable, and nobody in this room would expect it, and we don't expect it of our people. Now this may sound a bit like a scene from Fight Club, however, the only rule is there are no rules. We have guidelines, of course, otherwise our induction training would be pretty pointless. But a guideline is there to be broken, and that's the key to all of this. So, you know, a rule is there to be followed. A guideline is not. Because, you know, it's one of those. Every scenario is different. And this is what we stress every day. You know, every single customer, you've never had that conversation with that customer before. And this is what we tell our people every day. So you can't assume, you know, what the outcome will be, because you've never spoken to that person about that subject and that topic before. So what we do is we give them the ownership to make a decision. I'll come to the measurement part at the end, because this is that bit where some people go, oh my God. But it's really important at the front line, those guys feel empowered to do what is right. And we have lots of phrases. One is treat everyone like your gran. And this one's been going around for a number of years now. This is the premise that if your gran had a problem, or any member of your family, of course, if they had a problem, you wouldn't give them a tenner and hope they went away. You'd fix the problem for them. And that's exactly what we want our guys to do. You know, sometimes, you know, giving compensation to people but not listening to them is worse than doing nothing at all. So we just really, really sort of emphasize the importance of making sure our customers go away happy. And it's not about laying bricks. This is the story we always tell of two people, both laying bricks. You go up and ask one of them what you're doing, he says, I'm laying bricks. Go up to the other one, he says, me, I'm building a cathedral. Who do you think lays the best bricks? Now, I always ask this question when I go in and meet the new inductees, and sometimes you get people saying it's the first one. And I probably would agree with them. For a period of time, that could be the case. You know, it might be a short period of time, you'll lay bricks to the same standard, but after a while, the guy that's just laying bricks is going to think, what is the point? Whereas if you know why you're laying bricks, and you're bought into the whole business ethos, you'll do it for a lot longer and a lot better over a period of time. So it's just a communication piece. You know, we have an advantage, we're pretty much in one building. There's a lot of us, but we're in one building. So making sure we use the advantage of that and communicate regularly. Every month we close the business for half an hour. Everyone gathers in the park, the canteen area, and get an address from the CEO or the founder, depending. Because it's really important that everyone understands the why. We're really passionate about that. And then for all the fluff that I've just talked to you about, we are healthily, I always add in, obsessed with the detail. We want to know everything about everything. We want to know how long calls are, how many calls, about what, at what time of the day, at what day of the week, at what month of the year, and so on and so forth, and what they're doing. You know, we're not a contact center in the sense that some outsources are, where your principal KPI is answering the phone. It's the quality and what you do when you're on the phone that we are as obsessed with, and making sure that we know everything. So what does this do? Well, we have an internal, a transactional NPS, which is well over 80. So from customers that buy from us and experience our service perspective, we get around 4 to 6% of customers in the detractor zone. And back to the caring more piece, we actually have a guy whose job is just to make sure those detractors are happy. So luckily, it's still a manageable amount. It's kind of one guy, but we just make sure, because we are bothered. Even if it's 3 or 4 or 5% of customers say that they wouldn't recommend us, that really, really bothers us, and we try and make sure that we save that customer and change their mind and change their opinion. And from a Trustpilot perspective, I always say social media is the best thing that's happened to our industry, because you can't hide anymore. Years ago, there was the old, if you have good service, you tell 9 people, something like that. If you had bad service, you tell 9 people, good service 2. Now, with social media, Twitter, etc., you can tell thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions if you're Rihanna. It's really, really important. It makes businesses be good. It makes businesses have integrity, and I love it. And back to the whole keeping the CFO and the CEO happy. I think this is a great illustration of that. The green line is our NPS score over a period of time. When we first measured it, it was about 55, I think. And we've obsessed about making sure we increase that over the period to where it is now. And we're still kind of now making sure that we're aiming towards an NPS of 90. And the blue line is our contacts per order. So back to the Amazon, it's one of the key metrics that they have. How many contacts do we have in relation to the number of orders that are placed? And since we've started this program a number of years ago, we've more than halved our contacts per order, which is great from a culture perspective as well as a space perspective. It's one of those problems we always have, making sure that we fit in the space that we have as a growth business. And actually through this, last year we grew our sales by a considerable amount, but actually reduced our contact center headcount. And that's the plan, to make sure that we try and continue to do that year on year. Make sure we do. The extremes are Christmas, in case anyone's curious. And that's it. I can see sandwiches at the back. So those of you that came for that, it's almost over. I don't know if anybody does. Do we do questions? Do you want to do, or is it sandwiches? Has anyone got any questions quickly? I think there's a microphone coming.
You mentioned about, can you hear me? Can you hear?
Sorry, I can't hear you very well.
Hello? Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
You mentioned about when you're sort of hiring people, you hire them based on their values rather than their experience necessarily. So how do you sort of approach that in terms of that recruitment element? How do you do it?
Yeah, we have lots of different ways. We recently kind of love the idea of the personality tests. So you're introvert, extrovert, and I know it's kind of almost putting people in boxes, and this isn't going to be an exact science, of course, but in the principle that I always think, say, a salesperson is your typical extrovert in the sense that it's about that target. They're not too bothered about how they get there. It's about hitting that target. A typical customer experience candidate, it's all about the journey. It's all about getting there. So we do a personality test online after the phone interview, before they actually get invited into an assessment center. So we try and get an idea of, do they care? Because that's one of the key things for us, making sure that they care. And then on the day itself, we do lots of different things. We tell them about ourselves. So if I'm involved, we introduce ourselves, then ask them to do the same thing, so we can get a real understanding of of themselves and what it is that drives them. We kind of say, what is your dream? And it's really important to us that everybody has a dream. Otherwise, you're going to be a plodder, and we don't want plodders. We want people that are keen to improve and constantly progress. Lots of kind of involvement in terms of team goals. We ask them to build a car out of rubbish, basically. So we try and see how they then work together and interact and get involved with each other. And then there's finally a one-to-one interview. But it's kind of really important. There's lots of different things. For me, when I go to an assessment, I'm as much looking at how they listen to people that are presenting as how much I take of when they're actually speaking themselves. Because I think if you're encouraging others and really engaged with somebody that's speaking, that also is the kind of behaviour that we really, really want to make sure that we gather in Ghana. So lots of different things. I think, can we do a quick one?
Hi, very good presentation, thank you. A couple of observations really. I've heard this saying that good companies obsess about their competition, but the very best companies obsess about their customers, and I think that really came across. But one thing I was a bit surprised about is this measurement of NPS. Now, a lot of clients I speak to say that NPS is good because it gives you a score, so you know about how many people will promote you versus detract from you. But what you don't really know is why they're going to promote you or why they're going to be a detractor. So I'd be interested in knowing if you drill down to why. And another area that a lot of clients that I speak to are now working on what they call net emotional value. So it's more about how they feel about your product or your service, and do you do anything around that? And then the final one is,
Hold on, I'm going to have to write this down in a minute.
So you said you measure everything, you obsess about measuring everything. I'm more interested in, can you give us an example of something that you measured and changed?
Okay. Right, back to the start. So Net Promoter Score is the key metric. So I know it's a business-wide measure, not necessarily a measure of the contact center deliberately. We segment our NPS feedback. So obviously from a detractor point of view, it's very easy because they tell us why they wouldn't rate us. We look at our passives regularly, but it's a lot more subtle. And similarly with our promoters. So what we do is understand what category the customer is purchased in, what postcode they live in, what day they've received their delivery, what time of day. Naturally, say in the morning, customers are happier than if it's 7 o'clock at night because they've not had to wait in all day, even though we might have told them. It's just a kind of a natural thing. So we do segment. We do lots of other surveys where we just ask customers on general topics, whatever we think. We look at our contacts per order. We look at, I can't think, and I suppose the thing is around effort, so that's the kind of thing as well. I mean, CSAT we kind of just got rid of a while ago because I just hate the measure. You look at how satisfied are you? Well, it's not satisfied, it's just rubbish. So we got rid of that. Effort, we started asking customers to rate themselves, and they were like, that was literally what they'd say, what, you're asking me to rate my own effort? So just didn't get it. So we've kind of settled on NPS, but what we then do is kind of analyze that, to a further degree. From an emotional point of view, there's a number of projects that we've got at the moment where we are trying to understand that. It's just very difficult to get it out of the customer themselves, is the honest. And the last question, I forgot. Oh yeah, okay. Well, I suppose, really, so when we first started, our NPS was around 55, like I said. To take that up to 85, there's been a huge amount of different things. Mainly it's around things like communication and ease. So we understand, from a kind of a journey perspective, so how many customers are going into a certain page, what key search terms they're looking at, and making sure that the information is on the website. From a service perspective, it's really kind of, I suppose, how customers are coming through the IVR, the amount of time that they spend in the IVR, the amount of transfers that they have to have. So we tried 5 or 6 different IVRs over a 2-week period to get to that sweet spot where customers are getting to the right agent without the requirement of transfers. So we got transfers to a very good level. So I don't know if you feel free to ask more. There's loads of questions in there. Oh, one more, sorry.
Staying on the subject of NPS, do you do any NPS for your staff, like internally, or is it just customers that you look at?
Yeah, well, do you mean from a service perspective or the staff engagement perspective?
Just staff from start to finish, really. Like whether they work for you or what they do for you. like how they react with the customers, anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, we ask, so we have kind of quarterly staff surveys where we try and ask them very simple questions to understand their engagement. We also, from a new starter perspective in the onboarding process, we make sure that we have a very kind of, after say 3 months and 6 months, we're making sure that we're finding out how we do. We have staff appraisals every 6 months, and we also have our sort of one-to-ones every couple of weeks as well. You have things like Glassdoor now, obviously external metrics, which we do monitor and look at and kind of get into. But yeah, and your absence and attrition, the obvious things that are easy to measure. We also keep a close eye on things like that as well.
Are you using artificial intelligence technologies at all to better understand the interactions with guests and typical questions you're asked, etc.?
No, it's not there yet. We are very interested to see what more we can kind of get out of this. I mentioned our contacts per order have come down considerably over a period of time. Self-serve is one of the main things. The other is the brilliant at the basics, if I'm honest, making sure we do what we say we're going to do. I think there's loads around virtual shops. We don't have bricks and mortar. So I think the artificial intelligence, we've had sessions where we're playing with it really essentially at the moment, but there's a definite need, and the customer of the future is probably the thing that, other than the staff, that also keep me awake at night. I don't shop the same as my parents, and I don't expect my kids will shop the same way as I do, but what we've got to try and do is predict how they're going to interact and be ready for them. Okay, I think there's sandwiches. Thank you very much for your time.